Review Book One on is allowed the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the founder and CEO of Honor of Cashflow Copilot, no other than Mr. Justin Lloyd. Welcome, Mr. Justin on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm the owner of Cashflow Copilot. We are a bookkeeping and outsourced CFO firm. We really specialize in helping small to medium-sized businesses understand their financials, gain financial clarity, and give you a framework for decision making in your business, so you can take control and lead, with data and not with doubt. So.
Not doubt, for sure. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Justin. Thank you. And today let's talk about designing winning price strategies. So tell us, let's start with the foundational belief. Is a winning price strategy primarily about capturing maximum value or for the business, or about optimizing perceived value for the customer?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So a lot of, we work with a lot of business owners who are just starting out. They want freedom, they want independence. They might be either good at something already, or they will learn a skill in order to start a business around that. And a lot of times when they come out of the gates, they just look around at what everybody else is charging. They may not be super confident in what they're doing, and then they just set the price of what everybody else is doing, or they'll even try to undercut it a little bit to get some traction and say, hey, if customers are making decisions on price, they'll choose me over, they'll choose, over the next company. So a lot of the times that's the default pricing strategy. It's problematic because, first of all, you don't know that you're going to be profitable at that price. Your company might look a lot different than the companies down the road that are offering that same price. And you might also be leaving money on the table because you might be doing something that they do or that they don't do. You might have some sort of premium value, right? So really, pricing comes down to understanding what are the external factors that exist, things that you can't necessarily control. And that's things like the economy, laws, politics, all that kind of stuff. But it's also a lot about customer expectations, customer psychology. What are they expecting? And also what other companies are doing, what products and services they offer, what prices they offer. There's a lot of external factors that you have to take into account. And then internal factors, it's really about where is your company trying to go? What are you trying to deliver? What is your company all about and what it represents? And also, financial wise, like where are you trying to go with this? Are you trying to branch out into different offerings, different locations? How do you want to be perceived? All those kind of things come into play. So really what it gets down to is analyzing. Yes, we need to know what the competitive landscape is. We need to know what everybody's charging and what they're delivering for that, so we can make an apples to apples comparison over what we're delivering. But then we have to also look inward and really understand our own costs and say, okay, what does it cost? What are my fixed costs that exist? What are my variable costs that exist every time I deliver this service? How many widgets or hours of service do I have to sell in order to cover my fixed costs? And then after that, so that's what I call our break even point. That's super important to understand. And then also above and beyond that, okay, what is we call it a contribution margin. What is the dollar amount that I'm going to make on every sale beyond that that's going to contribute to my bottom line? So understanding the internal pricing or the internal costs of your company is important. And also your efficiency. That's one big thing that people don't take into account, is their efficiency. So let's say you are a pressure washer, a window cleaner, landscaper. You go out and your biggest cost is labor. So you're paying people to go do services at people's houses. The big thing that people don't take into account is how many hours are we paying those employees that they're not actually on the job doing work, collecting revenue from the customer. And so you might only be paying $20 an hour, but if they're only 75% efficient because there's drive time and there's prep time and there's some other dead time of people not, talking to customers, things like that. You might have to uplift what you're charging the customer in order to cover that cost, right? So the efficiency is a big thing that if you're not tracking it early on, you need to track it. So putting that all together, understanding your internal cost structure. And then once you sort of understand those dynamics, you can figure out, okay, where do I have to price to be profitable? I can look at it as a cost plus model where it's basically, here's my internal cost and I'm going to tack on something on top of that to be, to get to the profit that I need to be at. That's one way to look at it. And then the other way is looking at what is the market offering, right? So you really have to know both of those and compare, hey, if I price at market price, will I be profitable? And if I had my way and could get as much profit as I wanted, would that be competitive in the marketplace? So you have to know how those play with each other. And so those are, a couple of the more basic strategies. You touched on value. That's another big thing where it's, hey, it's not just about how much it costs me to deliver the service or what other people are charging, but how can I impart extra value into that? So the customer is not just going to think I'm paying for, X amount of hours or whatever. It's not as transparent, but you can say, hey, I'm going to bundle in some other things, or I'm going to do things a little bit differently that adds value to the customer. Maybe it's we schedule quicker than other people, or we'll do things on the weekend when other people won't, or we're just going to do this one extra little service that takes us 10 minutes, but it adds a ton of value for the customer. So how do we bring in value that we can charge more for that really separates us from the competition? So now it's more apples and oranges, right? So that's another great way to think about it and figure out how to impart that value. At the end of the day, though, a lot of it comes down to psychology as well. So once you sort of know all the costs, the structures, kind of what you want to offer, how do we deliver that pricing to the customer, right? So one big tactic is always giving them 3 different options. So this is a really common thing that works really well. And psychologically speaking, it's super interesting. But if a client is given 3 different options, 2/3 of the time they're going to pick the middle option. So think about it as, sizes of popcorn at the movie theater, or car wash options, or, different things like that, where you see tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You see it when you go to buy software all the time, right? Here's our 3 or 4 different tier options, pick one. And so you can really structure that to have the middle one be the one that you want them to buy. And your costs around that, what your profit's going to be. If they choose something less, they're going to get a lot less, but your profit might be better. If they choose the higher tier, they might get a little bit more, but they're going to pay a lot more. So that'll be fine as well, because we'll make good profit. But ultimately, we want to have them focus on the middle offer and say, hey, this is the one that I want to get, and this is the solution that we're designing around that. So that's a really common thing that we recommend doing. And also anchoring the most expensive price first. So starting with, hey, this is, our most premium offer, but a lot of people will start more at the middle tier, right? So you show the most expensive price first, their mind anchors around that. And then you say, but I wouldn't recommend that. I'd probably go with this middle option to start. And you get almost everything, the same, except we just peel off a couple things. You might not need that yet anyways. And the price is a lot more affordable. And now all of a sudden they're thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense, versus starting from a really low price and saying, well, if you add all this extra stuff, it's going to be, this much more expensive. So anchoring the most expensive price, giving them 3 different options, and really tailoring that, that middle one to what you want to sell is a great way to use what we know about human psychology in order to present that price to the customer. And that's a price that we've already deemed is going to be profitable for our company because we did all that work that I talked about beforehand.
Anchoring for sure. And Mr. Justin, tell us, how has the psychology of pricing evolved in the last decade? Beyond discount, what are the most powerful psychological levers business are not pulling?
Yeah, I mean, the discounting, and that's a pretty common one where, at least from the sales side of it, the knee-jerk reaction is to always discount price. And I've seen this in small businesses. I've seen it in large businesses that I've worked for as, hey, we're trying to make a sale. Time is of the essence. Let's just discount price and get this over with, right? But that really sets a bad precedent for the customer to know that they always have wiggle room and they can always talk you down on price, and you're not talking about value. So as much as you can keep the conversation around value, that's huge. So price is always still a concern with people, all the time, especially during economic recessions and things like that. If you have a service that's more discretionary, so that makes it definitely more challenging. But I think the bigger things that have come about recently is things that save people time, has been a huge thing, where time and location flexibility have really become important, especially since COVID. People want more time back. They want more flexibility. They don't want to be having to do the same things over and over, and they're looking to offload more things that save them time. So that's anything that you can demonstrate, this is going to save you a certain amount of time per week or a certain amount of headaches. You don't have to be an expert at this. Give it to someone who is an expert at this. That's kind of a big thing that we've seen. And just another thing is, people are willing to pay for things if they think the value is more than what they're paying. So it's not just about the dollars and cents in the budget, but it's about how their life is going to be different, their quality of life, and showing that value is really going to exceed what they pay. So people still, even when they're looking and shopping on price, they're still doing that against a value proposition. So even if it's a 99-cent thing at Walmart, they're still saying, is that worth it? Should it be 50 cents or should it be $5? What am I getting for that? Is it worth $1? So they're making decisions even with cheap things. So, or inexpensive things, I should say. So, but yeah, big things are time and making their life easier. Things like that has been more of a thing that we've seen come up lately.
Interesting indeed. Quality people. You talk about designing strategy. How much of pricing is a creative behavioral science versus a rigorous data driven financial exercise?
Yeah, it's definitely both. It has to make sense financially, when it comes back to data. But the fun part of it, I think, is on the art side of it, the science, the art, or not the science, but the art, the creative, the psychological part of it. I think that's the most fun part. So, kind of as I was talking about before, you have to understand the data, you have to understand the mechanics that are going to happen when I sell something. What does that mean for the company? What are our costs to deliver that service? But then you have the art side of, okay, how do I present that to the customer and things like that. And there's also things like bundling, right? If you're like, hey, we offer 3 different services, how can I bundle them to be more profitable? So maybe I offer 2 of them together and they get a certain discount. It's good for me because I'm actually making more revenue and more profit dollars, even if my margin goes down a little bit, and it's adding more value to the customer, and they can't really split apart how much I paid for this versus this. So that's another, artful way to go about it, or creative way to go about it. And also thinking about, how do I add other services to my business? Let's say I have a more seasonal business and it's more one-time sales. How do I get more recurring sales throughout the year? How do I get more sales in the off season? Do I need to offer different services? Do I need to offer a maintenance package? Maybe there's something I can come out and, do touch-ups a couple times a year. HVAC is a good example of that, right? Most people get their unit serviced twice a year. They pay a couple $100 and they come out, just to check things out. So they're turning what was maybe a one-time sale of a new system into a recurring stream of revenue. So how do we do that? How do we price it, and make it make sense again for the customer? So a good pricing strategy really encompasses both. It starts with really good data and understanding, what are we delivering? What's the value? What does it cost us to deliver? Who's our market? What are the external factors? And then we take that and we say, okay, this is really what we need to be profitable. Here's our thoughts. And then we say, okay, based on that, based on the market and what they're expecting and what we can do, how do we present it in a package that makes the most sense? And that's when marketing and sales comes into play, to say, okay, how do we convey to them the value? How do we package it differently, give them different options so they can feel like they have different options, and allow them a really easy way to say yes. And it all flows back then to data. Then it circles back to data when it hit, when we finally make the sale and it hits our financial statements, it turns into real data. And we can say, hey, did this turn out the way we originally designed it? And if not, we can tweak it. So we can say, okay, this wasn't quite what we thought. It wasn't as profitable as we thought. How can we make this product more profitable or this service more profitable? So it's really kind of a cyclical thing. The data feeds the art side of it. The results of the art, the sales and marketing efforts feed the data, and it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship. But it's really fun. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of things you can do to be creative around it. There's endless possibilities when you're talking about pricing and positioning in the marketplace. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do.
A symbiotic indeed. Mr. Justin, on strategy and execution, why the step by step process for diagnosing a broken pricing strategy? What are the key symptoms you look first?
Yeah, so we want to understand, do we have good financial data? And so a lot of times companies won't have solid bookkeeping. They won't have solid tracking of activity and resources that go into producing their good or service. So we'll come in and we'll look at their books, and there won't be a lot of clarity. So that there won't be solid bookkeeping, or even if the pluses and minuses are being tracked, it's not in a way that gives us enough transparency or enough detail to understand what's coming from where, and it's not allowing the business owner to understand or to make decisions off it. So the first thing we need to make sure is like our bookkeeping is solid. We have a really, really good tracking of our financials, and then we have a really good CRM or customer facing software that can give us even more details in terms of what's our accounts receivable at any given point in time, what is our customer values, how much are we making per customer, are there more profitable customers, things like that, how much time are we spending on each job versus what are we paying employees, all that sort of thing. So a scorecard is another really good thing to track activity versus financial results. So understanding, okay, here's our maybe 5 basic metrics that we need to track as a company to ensure that we're successful. So the first step to net it all out is having really good data, not only around your financials, but also around your activity, how much it takes to sell X amount of dollars for a specific customer, how efficient are we, again, on that, understanding that efficiency and how it drops our profitability. Is really the first step. And then the second thing is really taking that and saying, okay, what are the things that are in our control that we can change? Let's say we're not efficient when we're delivering the job. We can't charge anymore because we're sort of at a ceiling with what the market can bear, but we found that we're not efficient. So we have too much drive time. We have too much prep time, whatever. The way we can schedule to be in different areas of the city on different days. That'll help. Maybe there's some lack of oversight with our employees that we can improve. Maybe there's clocking in and out from a cell phone, things like that. There's other tracking mechanisms we can have to make sure that people are staying on track and being more efficient on the job. We can also control how much we charge or how much we pay our employees, right? So maybe we switch from an hourly based model to, hey, we'll pay you a certain commission or a certain percent of every job that you do. So whether it takes you an hour or 5 hours, you're going to get 20% of the job or whatever the number is. So that's another lever that you can pull to change behavior and also know exactly how much profit you're going to make at the end of the day on that job. So start with data, then figure out what's broken based on that data. What is in my power to fix? Is it an efficiency thing? Is it a payroll thing? Is it a leadership thing? Is it an operational thing? Is it a sales issue? Is it a marketing issue? That's the other thing, right? Understand how many marketing dollars are we putting out there? What's our ROI on each of those channels? Is sales efficient? Are we slipping when it comes to we're just not getting enough jobs on the books? That can be diagnosed as well. Or, hey, the schedule's actually full and we're doing a lot of business. We're just not profitable. Great. Is it our price? Is it our efficiency? Is it what we're paying our employees? Is it our operational process? Whatever. You have to dive in and you have to figure out what part of the business is broken. It could be one, it could be multiple, but that'll really lead you to, okay, what's the decision that needs to be made and what's the change that needs to be made. Then you can sort of increment those things. And if you're not sure, you can tweak. You can say, hey, let's make a little change here, and then let's pause and see how that affects things. Okay, that didn't do it. Okay, let's make a little change here. And you can kind of do trial and error, but it's better to have good data so that you know the answer ahead of time. Like, if we change this, then it's going to lead to this result. But data is really the key to everything. And the big thing that we find with newer or growing entrepreneurs is that they make financial decisions a lot with emotion, and they'll make it based on how much money is in the bank account. And it's not with good, clear, transparent, black and white data that we can say, hey, we want to take as much emotion out of it as possible. And we want to make decisions based on that data and not based on a thought or a feeling or how much money is in the bank account at any given point in time, because that can change. So we need to establish that habit of tracking that, because that's going to be the foundation for everything else that you do in the future. Otherwise, it's going to be constant guesswork, constant trial and error. And you're going to be constantly wondering what is good, what is bad, what contributed to my business positively and negatively. And it's going to be exhausting. So data is always the foundation.
Yeah, so Mr. Justin, as the owner of Cashflow Copilot, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, short-term goals, just to release our education platform. So we're developing, basically, for people that are newer to the business, or maybe under like $500,000 of revenue. We've developed a 10-hour education platform to help them understand, how do I get things set up from a legal and tax standpoint? How do I pay myself? How do I set up my bookkeeping? How do I understand how to read financial statements? Pricing strategy, we talk about a lot, some basic pricing tactics, and just understanding the basics of business. If you didn't go to business school, if you haven't run a business before, we're putting that out there as a way to say, hey, I'm going to invest just a little bit. I'm going to learn this stuff. I want to get to a point where now I'm ready to work with someone like me more full time, and get, pour more gas on the fire, so to speak. So that's our short-term goal, is getting that education platform out there, really helping a bunch of businesses that aren't quite ready for that consulting piece yet. So that's our short-term goal. And long-term goal is just to be a platform for people to be comfortable, to come and ask questions, right? So there's a lot of emotion around this. Even people that know things are broken, there's a lot of embarrassment around it. Saying, hey, I still, even though I know that you're in this business to help people, I'm still embarrassed to show you what I did, because I should know better, or I've been in business 10 years. I should know better. I shouldn't be making these mistakes. And that's really, we have to work past that, and we have to be like, it's okay, because everybody faces these things, and it's not just you, it's everybody. And we're literally in the business to help people with that. Right. So if you're embarrassed to go to the doctor or therapist or whatever, you kind of got to just push past that and say, hey, these people are here to help. And we want to break down those barriers and just have people comfortable to come talk to us about whatever, because it's not something that we haven't seen before. It's not something new, right? And we have the tools to help. So we just want to have people be able to approach us. We'll help them however we can, whether it's from the education platform or, a one-time meeting or a monthly meeting. That's our goal. But ultimately, we want to scale to be a platform of education, bookkeeping, consulting, and doing more podcasts, getting into more speeches and keynotes and things like that is ideal. But we just want to be a sort of the go-to for any sort of financial issues that people are having in their business.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Justin, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
To be like me, just don't stop. Like, just keep moving. And go, trust your gut, trust your intuition, but also know that there's people out there that can help. So it's the who, not how principle. There's solutions to your problems. Don't stick in the mud. Don't get frustrated. Just reach out, and it might be easier than you think. And typically, just investing a little bit of time there to get things fixed is a lot easier than trying to, slug through it month after month. So, and just keep moving and just follow your dreams. And we need all of you small businesses out there to do what you are capable of doing and what you're bringing to the world. And if the financial piece is a struggle, there's solutions for it, and there's people that can help. So that's my biggest piece of advice. And our goal is to make that more accessible and more affordable for people.
Keep moving, people. Keep moving indeed. And stop procrastinating. Just do it. And thank you for that advice, Mr. Justin. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a staple. It's the mentality behind money, I guess I should say, is a huge thing. And just the way you approach the world, and I've seen it in my own life, good and bad, is just the way that you approach your confidence and the way that money works, the way that the world works is huge. And so that's a really good foundational book for any entrepreneur to read. And then 10X is easier than 2X. Ben Sullivan, or Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan. That's a really interesting read, and it really it makes you understand that most people, what they do in their business are 2X decisions, where you're going to have a little more success, but it's about people are doing just more of what they're currently doing, and they're getting maybe moderate results. But it talks about, if you actually think about things differently and approach things differently and go for a 10X mentality, you're going to approach things differently, and you're going to make different decisions than you would have if you were just doing more of the same. So it's really about that. It's the same sort of thing. It's about a mindset shift to say, okay, if we want to 10X this thing, we can't just keep doing the things that we're doing. It's not going to get us there. So let's be creative. Let's go about it a whole different way. And that's where people become super successful, and the lid gets blown off. And so that's a really interesting read, because I found myself, a lot of the stuff that I was doing was 2X work, 2X activity. And so it's a constant challenge of how do we flip that into more 10X, spend more time on 10X activities.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Justin. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 second season, and food 101 in sixth season. This December, geography 101, love letters, movie 101, music 101 fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in second season. And my baby podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101. And coming this December, Entrepreneur 101. Now, please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Justin, looking ahead, how will AI and predictive analytics analytics transform the art of science of pricing strategy design in the next 5 years?
It's hard to say. I wish I had all the answers, but it's definitely been transformative in the finance arena. It's a little I would say, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's a little, you have to really know what you're doing, because I've played with it myself, and I've seen other people try to get answers from it, like, hey, I don't want to pay for a professional, so I'm just going to get answers from it. And it will come up with incorrect things if you don't know exactly what you're doing and how to feed it. And so I've tested it myself, and it's challenging, I would say. So obviously it's powerful. Obviously it's, a big part of the future, not denying that. But you really have to be careful, especially when it comes to your business and making decisions, that what you give it is what it, it can only give back what the quality of what you give it. And so just be careful about that, and make sure that you're sort of getting a second opinion from someone that's done it before in real life, based on that strategy. But I think it'll allow, once you do have a strategy and once you do have sort of a plan in place, it can allow you to probably execute that a lot quicker. But just using it to give you overall direction in your business can be a little, it's scary for me at this point. So just be careful with it.
Mr. Justin Boyd, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, yeah, definitely reach out with any questions. There's the email address right there, info at yourcashflowcopilot.com. That's our website, yourcashflowcopilot.com. If you want to book, just a chat with me, we're at calendly.com/cashflowcopilot/clarity. We can just chat if you have, a specific thing you're dealing with. And yeah, just watch out for our on our website for our education platform that's coming out in first quarter of 2026. So we're excited for that. And yeah, we're just here to help as many people as we can.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Justin Boyd because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering business like this to rise. So, Mr. Justin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Likewise, some more to come, people. See you soon.